in the streets, calling them near, whispering words they're aching to hear. Broken souls find solace there on Nashville's roads.
Hello, I'm John Coble, and this is Go Tell 365, the Mid-TN Report. Today we're talking with Robert Paulsen, who is one of my favorite evangelists in the Nashville area. Our topic, as always, is evangelism and sharing the gospel. We will be sharing some tips and experiences that I trust will encourage you in your ministry. So let me bring on Robert, and we'll get things started here. All right, Robert, how you doing?
Wonderful. I thought I was your favorite evangelist in the world.
Well, you gotta step up your game, man. You gotta step up your game.
Yeah, that's fair.
I've been around a while, so I've met a few
like
people.
15 of us.
Yeah. Oh, and I want to let you know as we get things started, I did bring some water for you if you need some water. I brought some water for you. It's an inside joke with me and Robert.
Always forget water, and he always quenches my thirst when we're downtown.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can get...
Which Jesus said, if you even give me a cup of cold water, you won't lose your reward. So in a way, I kind of do it for you.
That's right. So I wanted to start out by telling a little bit about some recent things you've been doing ministry-wise. What's the most recent thing you've been working on or thinking about?
I've been sticking pretty close to open air preaching lately. That's kind of been where my heart is. This year I'm in paramedic school. So I work on an ambulance. It's kind of a dream job for an evangelist. And so that's been really wonderful and very fruitful. As far as ministry, been doing mostly open air. It's just kind of when the streets are always open, which works with my schedule right now. Recently, I was just preaching at a Walmart in Montgomery, Alabama. Had a wonderful time.
Oh, wow.
I still go down and it was really good because I go away with the military once a month. I go to Alabama and do that, and that's a blessing. Try to get down to Nashville as much as I can. But so I've got my hands in a lot of pots, but it is a very busy year with school. I graduate in 3 or 4 months, and then I'm hoping to do more college campuses, continue with street ministry, and just kind of see what else I can get my hands in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So you said you went to Montgomery recently in a Walmart parking lot. I think I saw some of those clips. That's pretty cool.
There's always some low-hanging fruit at Walmart, and I think of one of the reasons I started doing it was Paul the Apostle said he would go to the marketplace, and not every Walmart is on. This one's very close to public property, so it just works perfect. But for the few that are that kind of work out where they're on like near a main highway or main streetway or sidewalk, I think they're a really great place where people are always there, always listening, and usually want to talk too.
Okay, yeah. So anything else going on around Nashville you've been doing?
Not specifically in Nashville, other than doing the street ministry, trying to look into various things I can get involved in after school, different college campuses. MTSU is something I really want to get involved in. If you sign up with them, you can go about 8 times a year. Looking into various channels of different prison ministries. I love to go to the Parthenon, so I'd like to start doing some more of that soon. The Parthenon's a wonderful cultural place. I mean, great one-on-one conversations there. So a lot I can't do right now, which is a little frustrating because I'm finishing up paramedic school. But the Lord's been super gracious, and I've been able to witness to some of the kids in my class, some of the other paramedics, and some of the patients, and that's been a real blessing.
Nice, very cool. Actually, I was at the Parthenon this past Saturday with Ben Grady and some other people, and we had an amazing time. It worked like it usually does there. Actually, it starts out really slow, and I think, am I wasting my time? Is anything going to happen? And then right at the end, we were literally packing up, and about 50 students showed up all of a sudden. They were on a bus, I guess, and they were on the Parthenon taking a picture, and then they were literally walking past us. And so we started handing out tracts as fast as we could, and I had some $1 million bill tracts. So in a couple minutes, people started coming back and asking for more tracts. So we're like, wow, okay, God, I thought we were done. But people kept asking for more, and so we had some brief conversations with some students. So that was encouraging.
That is, I think my favorite one of my favorite parables in Scripture, I really think it's just meant to encourage evangelism, Jesus said the kingdom of God is like a man who goes out and sows seed. And it's not the parable of the sower, it's a totally separate
Mm.
parable. He says the man goes to sleep and wakes up, and he goes to sleep and he wakes up. And eventually the seed starts to grow. And how that seed grows, the man doesn't know. And it just kind of reminds me that, there's really not a lot of use in that parable. There's not a lot of function, or there's not a lot of topics, or doctrines in that parable. I think the real main point of that parable is pretty simple, which is we don't know how this works, but we know the seed grows, and the gospel is that seed. And I think there's a lot of times it's very easy to fall into discouragement because you're not, maybe you're going through a dry spell. You're not getting those really deep conversations. You haven't seen anyone break down in tears in a week or two or a month or two. And then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, the Lord will bring that fruit into your life, bring those good conversations in your life, I think, to encourage you. But even when they're not there, I think you can just trust that that seed is going to grow one day.
Right. Yeah. So you wanted to tell us a little bit about how you got started, or your testimony,
Yeah, I could probably
or you
weave
want
both of them kind of together.
to? Okay. Wherever you want to start.
Yeah, yeah. I'll start with getting saved. So I got saved about 7 years ago. It was a wonderful experience. I'll give kind of a 30,000 foot view of it, and then go kind of launch into how I got into evangelism.
Mhm.
30,000 foot view. So I'm about 33 years old, and from like 0 to 25 or 26, I grew up in church, sure, but it was pretty lukewarm at best. And Jesus was just kind of, what I grew up learning. I never really paid attention to Jesus. I never studied Jesus. I never had a relationship with him. But sure, I was, a Christian, I guess. And so, I'd read the parts of the Bible and I grew up with it. So I knew Father Abraham had many sons and all those songs from, Sunday school and things like that. But I fell just headlong into wickedness. And from a very young age, I was obsessed with money and extremely greedy. And so I lived a very hedonistic lifestyle. I became totally engulfed in sexual immorality, totally engulfed in greed, very like wannabe Wolf of Wall Street type of lifestyle. And it was just very sad. I really coveted above everything else financial security, as well as pleasure and sexual immorality. And I got into some drunkenness and gluttony. I mean, you name it, every sin in the book. I was kind of zealous for my sins. I mean, I was going in this life, and
Wow.
those were the things that pleased me. I was a juvenile delinquent when I was younger. I joined the military. I got into banking. So all that success made me extremely prideful. I had built up a financial idol in my mind. This was an idol that represented financial security. And I was having so much anxiety over money, and I wanted so much for money I didn't want to have to work, and I just wanted to, do whatever I want with my life and have freedom, quote unquote, end quote, air quotes. And I really thought money and all these things would give me that freedom and peace of mind. And so I hit that financial goal. I had built it up in my mind for like a decade at that point, since a young teenager. And I hit that financial goal. And within a very short period of time, maybe a month or two, I just felt like life was over. I was miserable because I couldn't get rid of the anxiety. I didn't feel any peace or any joy. I also just felt like there was no challenge, and I didn't really want to be alive anymore. And so I actually ended up in a Vanderbilt psychiatric emergency room overnight. And I was sort of like not locked up, but I wasn't allowed to leave. And that kind of freaked me out because I had various business endeavors and, know, things I was doing. And I had read on my phone. They forgot to take my phone, but I had read on my phone that you're not allowed to leave. They can hold you for up to 20 or 25 days. And so I'm freaking out. I'm even more nervous. And I didn't get saved that night, but I do believe that was a very integral part of my process. That night, I just felt as if I didn't hear anything audibly, but I felt in my heart that the Lord might be trying to communicate to me. I know you're an addict. I know you're really messed up. I was addicted to pornography. I was addicted to money. I was really, I personally believe, slowly starting to lose my mind. I was checking my bank account like 15 times a day, doing math. I was starting to get into drinking. And I was literally gaining weight while running ultra marathons, which is very hard to do. Like, you can run 20 miles some days and still gain weight. Like, I was running to silence my conscience and shut my body up, because I was so miserable. I just had to do something. I had so much energy. And then I was eating and drinking to numb the pain with all the sin. I mean, I was just so full of anxiety. I would do anything to get rid of it. And I was just really, I didn't want to live anymore. I did not want to live anymore. And I knew I was a doer. So I knew if I tried to kill myself, I would have succeeded. And so I was nervous when I started thinking that I don't want to live anymore, because I was like, man, like, this could go south for me. I'm not going to half do this thing. And so I checked myself into this clinic, and I end up at this psychiatric hold, and I'm freaking out. And I just felt like the Lord was kind of saying, hey, I know you're an addict. I know you're really messed up. I want you to be addicted to me. I want you to turn your focus toward me. And I was like, okay, sounds good. I didn't really know what to do. So I kind of like quit my job the next day. I took, I took about a year off work, and I did get saved in this year, but it was interesting. It wasn't right away. I went on like a 6 to 9 month spiritual journey. It was very legalistic. I was trying to figure something out, because I already thought I was a Christian. So I just thought I needed to clean things up. And I hear a lot of men, it's really sad. I hear a lot of men say, oh, I went on a spiritual journey and I got saved. And it breaks my heart, because it seems like they never got out of that first 6 months of the legalistic journey I went on. Like, my spiritual journey I went on, I'm going to describe it here in a moment. It was 6 months of, in God's sovereignty, of course, he uses it for his good, but it was ultimately a waste of time. It was me trying to save myself. And I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I wish somebody would have just came along and told me. Like, I quit my job. I started reading the Bible. Of course, I read the whole Bible because I had no job, but I was still, pretty energetic. I got into running some more, with dieting, and I cleaned myself up on the outside. My teeth were white. I was, taking care of my body. I felt healthier, but I couldn't get the anxiety to go away. And I still loved my sin. And over this 6 month period, I mean, I went to Bible studies. I read the Bible. I read the church fathers. I couldn't stop loving my sin. And I knew I loved my sin. And I'm really persuaded that the Holy Spirit started to open up my eyes to the reality that I didn't really enjoy God. I didn't have a relationship with God. And I was very aware that I loved my sin and really enjoyed it. And yet I was hearing men talking about enjoying God, drinking of the rivers of his pleasure, and like really having this experience. I didn't get it. And I just told God, I said, God, I don't get it. And so I was trying everything. I tried the Bible. I got into meditations. And before I knew it, I was doing like chakra meditations. I got into stoicism. I got into some really dark stuff.
Wow.
I wasn't really seeking Jesus or a solution for my sin. I was just seeking healing and peace of mind and security that I couldn't find in money or the world. And so I did everything I could. I even flew to Israel last minute and got baptized where Jesus was baptized, and fell right back into sin. I fell right back into sin that night. Like nothing I could do. Like, if anybody could save themselves, it'd be me. Or if baptism could save you, I would have been saved right there, because I flew to Israel and got baptized. Where if anyone's going to be saved by baptism, it would be me.
Yeah.
That is proof. Baptism does not save you. And so I got back from Israel pretty upset and brokenhearted. I just could not stop my love of sin. And so I was working one day, and I had a lot of time to read the Bible at the job I was working at. And I read through the whole Bible. And then I finally started to focus on Jesus Christ. And as I focused on Jesus, I read every single prophecy of Jesus in the Old Testament. And so I was 100% convinced in my mind, as an unregenerate man, as a not born again Christian, I was convinced in my mind, this has to be talking about Jesus. I grew up talking about it, but something really interesting happened. When I finally started studying and looking into Jesus biblically, I started worrying that he was not God, like a Jew would 2,000 years ago. What if he's not the Messiah? What if he's not God? And something very interesting happened. All my anxiety about money turned into anxiety about Jesus. I would worry. I would really worry. And I was scared of hell. And I would worry, what if he's not God? And my mind was locked. A veil lies over your mind before God, unveils the truth of the Messiah to you, the truth of Jesus. And so my mind was literally locked. When I thought about Jesus, I could only envision him in my mind's eye as a man looking up to God on the cross. Well, how on earth could he be God? And I could not figure it out. And I was in turmoil and anxiety of my soul now. I was really worried about hell, and I was really worried about Jesus, and I was just stuck. And one night I kind of broke down and I said, Lord, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but people have a really simple faith in you. And like, I've torn apart your Bible and I've read all these prophecies and I'm convinced, but I said, I just can't figure this out and I can't stop sinning. Like, can you just give it to me? And those were the verbatim words I said. I said, can you just give it to me? And he did. I know he did. In that moment, it was really wild. That those next 24 hours were like the best 24 hours of my life. Like, in that moment, I don't want to like embellish here, but I felt such a relief. Like, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. And if I remember correctly, I audibly shrugged. Like, I was like, like literally, like it was that much of a weight off my shoulders.
Wow.
And I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything else that night. Like Jesus says, first it's the seed, then it's the bud, and then it's the full seed and the grain and all that. I didn't know anything else. I didn't know I was saved. I didn't know what happened. I felt really good and I felt really light. And I knew that salvation was by grace. And that was like it. And I went to bed and I woke up and I went back to work and this was really cool. I knew two things that without reading the Bible, I knew them in my heart. I knew them in my mind right away with conviction. I knew Jesus was God. I knew it. The God of the tabernacle I had been reading about, the glory cloud covering Israel, the God in the temple. It was in Christ, but more than just being in Christ, he was Christ. And now, when I imagine Jesus Christ, it was the eternal God, the all-powerful God, but I imagined him as a man just looking at his hands. It's like my mind was just unlocked. And I was really excited because I just thought I figured it out.
You thought you figured it out, yeah.
I'm like, finally, I got this. This is simple. What was I thinking this last year? But what's amazing is the second thing I learned that day, and these are actually the twin pillars of what I preach. You hear me preach them all the time. Number one, Jesus is God. And number two, and I knew that without reading the Bible that day. I just knew it. Number two is I read in Romans chapter 4, and I had read the whole Bible, so I had read this, but I read, to the one who works, the wage is not according to grace, but according to debt. But to the one who does not work, but believes in him, Jesus, who, and this is the words that were incredible, justifies the ungodly. His faith is credited as righteousness.
Right.
I knew I was ungodly. I knew that. I knew Jesus was God. And when I read that God died to justify, make not guilty, ungodly men like me, I knew I was saved. I knew I was saved. And I knew this was the least theological and the sweetest thought I've ever had about God. I knew right away I could go home and sin and do whatever I wanted, quote unquote, and that Jesus was going to hug me on Judgment Day. He was going to receive me. He was going to embrace me in his arms. I knew it. And that freed me to let go of all that sin. I've never watched pornography again by the grace of God. He just totally freed me from that. He gave me a joy, my most exhilarating joy I have in life is usually just quietly reading the Bible and talking to God now. And he gave me a peace and security that money could never give me. He washed me of my sins. He forgave me of them. He gave me a new heart. Every promise in the Bible, every promise in the new covenant, he did all that for me. And it was just such a wonderful experience. And I got to enjoy having the rest of the year off and just spending sometimes up to 8-10 hours a day with the Lord and in his word. And so I immediately started evangelizing. I mean, it was just
Wow.
almost as natural as breathing to me. I got saved. I had all
Mhm.
this knowledge from studying and working out my salvation and all that. I mean, I
Mhm.
got saved and I was actually working as a juvenile corrections officer in a juvenile jail when I got saved. And it was like
Huh.
an in-betweener job that I was doing for fun while I was starting businesses, and it was a fun job, and I got to talk to these kids, and immediately God was giving me opportunity after opportunity, and right away there were a few people professing Christ, and I was so thankful for
Mhm.
that. And so ever since, I felt a strong pull to the homeless and to the cities, and
Mhm.
God was always kind of sending me places with the military or this or that. So that's how I got saved. And evangelism flowed right out of that. I don't even know if I've been saved
Mhm.
a day or two without evangelizing. It was the most like it
Mm.
just no effort. Like the woman at the well, it was the first thing I started doing. I
Yeah.
never, I never thought of myself as an evangelist. I think just like a year ago,
Mhm.
I kind of came to terms with the fact that I'm an evangelist. Yeah, and so the way the evangelism was very natural, and I love to talk to people. It took me about a year to be able to really articulate the gospel. So if there's anyone listening who wants to evangelize, but they're struggling, at first I was just talking to people about Jesus, doing my best, kind of feeding the homeless. It's pretty, easy crowd of people to get involved in at first. And then over time, the Lord led me to wonderful teachers and great, theologians like John MacArthur and others to study the word more. And then I was able to articulate it
Yeah.
better. And, he was so gracious in sending me great leaders and elders and teachers. But anyway, so I'm doing evangelism, and John
Mhm.
Coble, you actually got me into open air preaching, and it's really funny how it works because I love it now. I never
Mhm.
thought I would. It's really the main, one of the mainstays of evangelism for me personally.
Yeah.
I don't push it on anyone else. But when I
Yeah.
first saw a street preacher doing it correctly, because many Christians who love the Lord, they don't like street preachers, and they're not wrong because they've seen a lot of heretical street preachers. Well, John
Yeah.
Coble and a couple others were the first faithful street preachers I'd ever seen. Then I saw like Ray Comfort and Todd Friel doing it and some others like that pretty
Mhm.
quickly. And I saw them do it. And right away I said, Lord, I'm not doing that.
Uh,
Literally. I literally I prayed, Lord, I'm not doing that. I said, Lord, that is not my gift. I told him what my gifts are, and I
mhm.
told him what I would not be doing. I was embarrassed. I still
Mm.
suffer with embarrassment. In fact,
Mhm.
many people think evangelists never get embarrassed. No, I still struggle with it every day, and a
Mm.
lot of the greatest victories have been the victory over my pride, so that I'm not embarrassed of my Lord who bled and died for me. But I came from a lot of
Mhm.
pomp and circumstance, and it was difficult for me to be laughed at all the time and pointed at. And I didn't mind it too much, but there have been certain things the Lord has really had to slowly sanctify me from.
Mm.
And I really felt like when I got saved, I was instantly cured of a lot of perversion and sexual immorality, not perfectly, but pretty radically. Whereas with
Mm.
embarrassment and pride, those were
Mhm.
longer, slower battles, and street preaching really
Mm.
helped that. And so, of course, I saw street preaching. I said, Lord, I'm not going to do that. But I kept coming out with John, and I kept
Mhm.
evangelizing, and I kept having one-on-one conversations.
So
And go ahead, you got a question?
you came out with you came out with somebody else? Like, how did you end up out on the street, uh, where you met me?
I felt like a hook in me to go to Nashville. Literally, right after I got
Huh.
saved,
Mhm.
I was driving through the city one day. I don't live but 30 minutes away,
Mhm.
and I saw some homeless people. And literally, I felt like a hook in me of
Wow.
this is the low-hanging fruit. There's people hanging out on the street all day, and I just started walking around the city with some socks and bottles of water and just kinda figuring it out, you know?
Mhm.
Um, and just talking to people one-on-one, getting to know the city, getting to know the homeless crowd, getting to know who works there and things like that. And then Dwayne Cook, a good friend of mine, he like heard of your group, and he was like,
Mhm.
he knew me as an evangelist, and he said, "Oh, Robert, you got to go, you got to go out with this group." And so I went out with you guys, and I
Mhm.
think I went out with you guys like 5 to 10 times, and I was just evangelizing and doing one-on-ones, but oh no, Lord, I'm not going to street preach. And eventually I started to see, oh Lord, I think I do have this gift. I see
Mm.
that these men are able to give an answer for everything people are saying, and that's happening in these conversations. And
Mhm.
I'm thinking that you might have gifted me to do this. And then I said, oh Lord, they're telling more people about Jesus than me, and I can't have that. No. No, I said, Lord, I literally did, and I'm a banker, so I was a numbers guy, and I know you can fall into, we don't want to like count heads or be prideful in that way either, but I was a numbers
Mhm.
guy. And at the end of the day, when I go out, I've got a couple hours on the street. I want to tell as many people as possible about Jesus Christ in the most faithful
Yeah.
way. And I began to realize, like, there's no way I can tell so many more people about Jesus Christ if I open air preach. And I get into more of those like really deep one-on-ones, because you start by throwing a net to the crowd, but
Mhm.
then you reel someone in for that one-on-one conversation. And so one night I was out with you, and I just
Mhm.
grabbed the mic, and before I knew it, I started, and I loved it, and I've just never really stopped.
Mm. Wow. That's really cool. It seems like a lot of people have similar stories where they are, get into it kicking and screaming, and yet they're compelled to do it. And it's it's mysterious to me that God obviously calls people to do it, but not always people aren't don't start doing it willingly. Um, for me, when I started, especially, I was one part of me was like, "No, I'm not doing this," and part of me was like, "I have to do this," and I like, how can that be? But it is. It's an amazing thing.
Yeah, I was very zealous. I love reading the
Mhm.
Bible. I really saw myself as like going to seminary and writing books and drinking
Mhm.
coffee and just thinking about God all day and writing it down. And that's a wonderful ministry. We need more men like that. But I ended up on the streets, and now my heart has caught up to that, to where I'm like, man, like I love to be right in the thick of it, and I love to sit and read books for hours too, and do all that labor
Yeah,
in the word, but I got to get out there, and I got to swing that sword. And I love to be on the
yeah,
front lines and really having those gospel conversations. And this, when you go out to do
mhm,
ministry, you see the miracles of God again and again. You have all these stories of men coming up to you, confessing drunkenness, confessing drug use, confessing immorality, and you get to offer them Jesus Christ. I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing like this. I'm so thankful the Lord allows me to do this now.
yeah, and Nashville is such an amazing place for doing it, for, so many different kinds of ministries. Nashville gets, I think the last I heard, an average of 40,000 visitors every day. People are coming to Nashville by the tens of thousands every day to come out on Broadway a lot of times, and we get to interact with them and share the gospel with people, and then they go back to where they came from and take it with them maybe. People come from other countries. I met some people who were from where are they from? Somewhere in Europe just the other day, who got to hear the gospel because they came to the Parthenon, and the Parthenon was closed that day, it turned out, so they didn't get to go in the Parthenon even, but they got to hear the gospel.
That's
So let's
wonderful. Yeah, I think Nashville could be the best city in the world for street preaching. It's such a condensed crowd. Even when we went to Vegas, it wasn't that
yeah,
condensed. But yeah, you were going to say
yeah.
something?
Well, I was just gonna say, let's talk about, some of the upcoming things, specifically Mule Day. So, what's going on Mule Day, and how did that happen?
Yeah, Jonathan, who's in our group, really solid
Mhm.
guy. He got a table for Mule Day in Columbia, and there's supposed to be 200,000 people there over 3 days. And we have a table from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. every single day. And so we're going to be handing out snacks and waters, gospel tracts, Bibles, calling people in. It's going to be a lot of one-on-one evangelism, hopefully really good conversations. I think my heart behind it is I don't think you need to be a particularly gifted evangelist to dip your toe in here. It might be a little intimidating coming to Broadway at 10, 11 o'clock at night on a Friday, whereas this is probably lower barrier for entry. You can dip your toe in, have some conversations in a calm environment, and get to share your faith and get to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Mule Day is an event in Columbia, Tennessee. There's going to be vendors all day. They're actually celebrating mules. Columbia is known for mules, so there's going to be a lot of farming and agricultural lifestyle type people there. But I think it's going to be a blast and a nice, calm environment to share the gospel.
Yeah, and that'll be April 9th, 10th, and 11th. Coming up
April 9th,
soon.
10th, and 11th. So if you want to get involved, reach out.
Yeah. I'll be there all day Saturday, and you're going to be there.
I'm going to be there Thursday, all day Thursday.
Okay. And so we're hoping to get a lot of volunteers for some part of the day. It's a big commitment to be there all day, but it's going to be a good time. We're going to have a lot of one-on-one conversations. I was talking with Jonathan about it when he first got the booth, and he was trying to ask the people, like the organizers, like what's allowed, what's not allowed, and they said, well, we don't want you to make a lot of noise, so they don't want us to be open air preaching, but they said that we don't want you to make a lot of noise because it might scare the mules, which seemed really funny to me. But that's what he said.
Well, like Balaam's donkey,
Also, in the next few months, we always do an outreach the first Saturday of the month at the Parthenon. We had one last weekend because the weekend before that it was raining, but that was always a good opportunity for one-on-one conversations. We'll be looking forward to some of the other things in June, probably 2 or 3 Pride festivals I'm going to go to. The Nashville one is always the biggest one around, so hopefully we'll go to that one in June. This summer there's going to be a lot of different events. We don't have them nailed down. Oh, right, Bonnaroo. That's in June also, right?
I think Bonnaroo's in July, if I remember. Could be June. But Bonnaroo's a really big. If you live in the Tennessee area, I would highly recommend going to Bonnaroo for some evagelism. I actually had one of the best one-on-ones I've ever had. That'd be a great session. If you ever want to do another one, let's put together 2 or 3 of our favorite stories, because I've got just some wonderful stories I'm so thankful to the Lord for, of people convicted of their sin and crying out to the Lord. And my favorite one was actually at Bonnaroo.
Well, I guess I'm going to see if we can wrap things up. I just wanted to say thank you, Robert, for coming on here. I hope we can get you on some more, and we can go a little deeper in some of the things we want to talk about. And I'll go ahead and close this out. And thank you for watching Go Tell 365, the Mid-Tennessee Report. Until next time, God bless and go tell.
And this is Robert Paulsen, Jonathan's favorite evangelist in the world, signing off.
Thank you for watching Go Tell 365, the Mid-TN Report. This is our 2nd episode, and I appreciate your patience as we work through some of the technology issues. If you want to support my channel, please subscribe, and also you can go to the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description. Thank you.
Preacher in the streets, calling them near, whispering words they're aching to hear. Broken souls find solace there, on Nashville's roads, a holy repair.